Everybody's heard about financial leverage, but have you heard about operating leverage? Operating leverage is a measure of fixed to variable costs, and it has pretty much the same effect on companies' risk profiles as financial leverage does. If you'd like to learn more about operating leverage, stay tuned. Having a good idea of our fixed and variable cost structure is important for forecasting total costs as a function of volume. It's also essential for understanding an important risk factor that goes overlooked by many managers. I'm talking about operating leverage. Imagine two companies. Let's call them old school and new school. Old school relies on fixed production capacities, they contract their employees on a salary basis, and they own their own facilities. New school, on the other hand, takes advantage of the gig economy. Their employees are not on fixed salaries. When demand is up, their employees clock in and go to work. When demand is down, and the employees aren't making a lot of money, they go home. New School rents their facilities from a company that charges rent based on square footage being used at the end of each month. This way they can flex the warehouse and production capacity up and down depending on how busy they are. As you can see, Old School has a mostly fixed cost structure, while New School has a highly variable cost structure. Which is better? Well, if what I told you is that your chief economist thinks the economy is about to take off, would you rather have more fixed costs or variable costs? Think about it per unit. If I sell one more unit, what is my marginal cost of making one more unit if I'm old school? Not much. You simply use the unused capacity you have available. What about for new school? They need more labor, and they may need more square feet where they can process the order. Let's say both companies sell their product for $100 per unit. Old School increases their revenues by $100 and their costs don't really change, so they add nearly the full $100 of extra contribution margin to operating income. New School increases their revenues by the same $100, but their labor and overhead go up with the increased demand, meaning that they make less than $100 of the additional operating income on a net basis because their contribution margin is less than $100. But what if the economy cools off? New School sends people home and shrinks the warehouse, lowering costs, but Old School is stuck paying for idle capacity that they aren't using. New School's costs flex down with the lower sales volumes, while Old School's operating income might be hit pretty hard. Cost behavior exposes your firm to changes in the macroeconomy, so fixed costs are a form of risk. They are like a teeter-totter or a seesaw. When things are going well, having more fixed cost is a blessing. When things are falling apart, fixed costs are a curse. In this example, you can see that Old School's cost structure is riskier than New School's. How do I measure that? Well, look at the operating income for all three scenarios. When things improve for Old School, they really improve a lot. But when things go badly, Old School begins losing money. New School may not make much in a recession, but they aren't going to go bankrupt. The same can't be said for Old School. The degree of operating leverage is measured as a contribution margin divided by operating income. We can use this to compare with other businesses to see how much risk we are comfortable with. I'm not saying that a company needs to have the lowest fixed cost or risk in an industry. At Ford, where we had more risk than General Motors, we used to say we don't have to be profitable in a recession. We just have to lose money slower than Chrysler, because when they fail, we will split their market share with GM and continue to survive. Financial leverage, or the amount of debt a company has, works the same way. So logically at Ford, we wanted to keep our degree of operating leverage and our financial leverage just under that of Chrysler, but just over that of General Motors.